I was born in Long Island. So part of my life was in Long Island and part of my life was in Brooklyn. And I like that I had that mixture because Brooklyn is really urban and Long Island is really suburban. So I was living in Long Island up until second grade, and then after second grade, that's when I moved to Brooklyn, and I spent majority of my childhood in Brooklyn. But the weekends I would go to my grandparents' house, and that's where I spent my Long Island time and had that peace and quiet because Brooklyn is busy and going, and Long Island is. Me and my brother, we would sleep and we'd be like, "What's that? Crickets? Like what's going on?" And that was a different experience, and not worrying about the street lights because in the city, the street lights indicated that you had to come inside, whereas in Long Island, there are no street lights. Riding your bike on a block on Long Island, you could ride in the street, whereas Brooklyn's too busy to do that. So it was like I got the opportunity to have the little balance of both growing up. When I was younger, because the lack of language, and I didn't really know, I knew I liked women. I know I liked girls from really young. I remember having like a crush on this girl named, I don't know if I can say names, but whatever, Felicia Mott. And I had a crush. I was probably like in second grade. This is when I was living in Long Island, and she was dating somebody named Michael. And I was so upset. I took my spork and just started digging. And she came over to me. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm digging my grave because you're not my friend anymore." And it was just, I didn't know what I was feeling, but I knew I liked Felicia. I knew I liked her more than I liked any of the other friends that I had at school. And I didn't know how to put that into words as a kid. And as I got older, I realized my attraction for women was different. When I was young, when I played house, I always wanted to play the dad. I always wanted that role. And I was comfortable with that. It wasn't until, going to church with my family and I would see or hear certain things that I would realize that maybe what I was feeling was incorrect. But that's not true. It's just that that's what I was around. So when I started identified again with language, identified as a lesbian. I told my mom that I was bisexual because I felt like that would be easier for her to understand and easier for her to accept. And I started changing the way I dressed a little bit. And she told me, she was like, you have to pick one. And at the time, I knew emotionally and mentally I was way more attracted to women. And I was just like, well, I like women now. And that's how it kind of came about. That's when I was like, I like women. The language I only had at the time was lesbian. So I was like, okay, maybe I fit into this mold. And I didn't really see anybody or know of anybody of trans experience at all at that time. When I would go to the mall with my mom, there was somebody who identified, again, I didn't have the language, but somebody who appeared as a woman, or she was a woman, but my mom would point her out as a man to me. And that was my first inkling of like, okay, this is some sort of difference. And I wonder if, I didn't go too deep, but I was wondering how that worked. How that worked for me, how that would look like for me. But I didn't dig deep into that until probably 19 years old. And like 18, 19, because I went away to Temple. I was in Temple for like a semester, and I was researching everything. I was Googling a lot of things. I was watching different balls and things like that, and I was like, oh, wow, they have something that kind of falls in line with what I kind of want to walk into. So that's kind of what opened up my eyes to people of trans experience and people of difference, yeah. Authenticity means to me being my true self. And for a long time, I battled with that. I battled with who I was and being accepted by people because I realized as I got older, society does a lot of covering and lies. So it's easier for people to accept you into this form that navigates as everybody else, whatever normal is to society. That if long as you fall into that and you do everything else that you want to do on the side and it's covered, that's fine. But once you become who you are and you're out and open about it, it's kind of like, well, what are you doing? This is the standard. You're supposed to be like this and do whatever you want to do behind the closed doors, whatever that may be for anybody. But once I stepped into myself and I was like, I don't need to hide. What am I hiding for? That's when I said, okay, I love this. I love who I am. And I started living more freely, and that's my authenticity. My mother's side is Jamaican. My father's side is American. So, and now that my grandparents, they had like a really, what I considered pretty strict mold on how they wanted their grandchild to be, and I didn't know how to navigate as a Caribbean child and being who I was authentically because I wanted to please people. I was that's the line that I fell into as a child. I wanted to make sure that everybody else was happy, so I didn't know how to be myself completely as a kid. And then with the American side, it was more welcoming. It was be whoever you want to be. I'll love you regardless. And I didn't know how to navigate that because I wasn't that close with the American side of my family. So because I spent most of my time with the Jamaican side, I felt like I needed to fall in line to whatever standard they set for me. So whether it be wear this skirt, wear this dress to church and do this and do that, do the ballet when I wanted to do tap instead, that's where I fell in line. Up until I got into a space where I started separating myself from my family altogether. And even today, I just had a conversation with a family friend, and she said, I haven't seen a lot of pictures of you. I always see pictures of Jerry, which is my younger brother. And I was like, yeah, that was during the time where I kind of wasn't taking pictures with family. I kind of separated myself completely because I felt like if you can't see me for me, I'm not going to be around. And it was best for my sanity to not be around. And it drew this gap between me and my family and my understanding of even my Jamaican background, because for a long time I would feel attached but then feel detached. Like I would want to say I'm Jamaican, but then I'll be angry because I would feel like, well, you don't really love me. I'm over here saying, yeah, I'm Jamaican and I'm proud, but then it's like, well, y'all don't see me for me. And so it was a confusing space for me for a while. I mean, now I'm completely out of that. I mean, I'll say proudly I'm Jamaican, and I have Jamaican family members who still love me completely. But I understand now that it's not so much, it has a lot more to do with them learning and unlearning than anything else. One thing my dad always tells me too, he was like, make sure you're happy first. Make sure T's happy. My dad calls me T. I don't like everybody calling me T. My name is Tashan. Don't call me T. But my dad would say, T, what makes you happy? Make sure that you're happy first. And even when it came down to relationships, he'll say, that, depending on what your religious background is, he'll say, it's you, your partner, and God. Nobody else in that circle. So he always made sure that, make sure it's tight, make sure you're happy, make sure that you put yourself first. And that's what was something that started to come in my mind. What do I need to do to make sure that I'm happy and complete and whole, and I feel full? Because if I'm not whole and full and complete, how can I be anything to anybody else? So those are the type of things that would run through my mind. And even as a child, I would record myself because I was going through this, like, I felt like I didn't have anybody, and I'm a poet, so it was either writing or record. And I guess as a child, I would say I was a filmmaker because I was taking like a film class and had a little camera. So what I did was I started documenting myself. So I started documenting myself, and I would talk to myself. So I would talk about my experience. I would talk about my day-to-day. And that was a time where I think I probably asked myself the most questions. But I destroyed everything. I wish I didn't, because I could have something to look back on to see my growth. But it was ultimately about making sure that I was complete and I was whole and I was happy and that I knew myself inside out. Because if I don't know me, I can't tell you how to navigate with me. I can't navigate in any space. And that's part of becoming who I am every day. Because things change. Something I love today, it could change 5 years from now. So I'm understanding that as well. I don't like the word really coming out. I struggled with it as a kid, especially when I was trying to figure out who I was and my language. And I want to go to when I started HRT now. I don't want to go back to that far back. This time around, I guess I want to say second time, because that's how people try to put it sometimes. My second time of like expressing or telling my family who I was so that they can know how to address me. I spoke to my dad first, and it wasn't, to me, it was more like me, like, again, telling him, hey Dad, this is what I'm about to do. This is the pronouns that I need you to call me, or this is the name. Because for a while I went through a million names. I had a lot of names. Just to circle back to kind of like my original birth name that my mom gave me, my mom and my grandmother. So that's why it's also special too, because I love my grandmother a lot. And she was part of giving me my first name. And so I kind of went in this whirlwind of different names just to come back to the origin. And when I told my dad the name and everything else, he already had my birth name tatted on his neck. So he's like, what am I supposed to do about this? And I'm just like, well, just star out this part, and now it's the same thing. But my family was like I said, the second time around of letting them know who I am, they were a lot better. They were open. They were patient. It was different. I don't know. What I saw though was like a little rejection from friends. I saw friends shift. I feel like because my family went through something with me the first time around, they realized like I don't want to lose you, so let's make sure that I take my time and get this right maybe a little bit. There's certain family members who I don't see often, so it comes to a shock and a surprise. And like recently, like a year and a half, 2 years ago, my grandaunt passed away, and at the funeral, I had cousins who just stared at me, you know, and I was like, it's okay. I'm the same person. It's me. And, you know, because they probably had their own bias. So now it's like, now it's in their face and now it's their family. So now it's like, oh, now what do I do? Because I know you and I love you. But now I'm out when you're not around, I'm sitting around judging people who I see like you. So now it put people in this space where they didn't know how to address me. They just stared, like literally just looked at me and stared. So that was interesting because, again, I don't see these people all the time. Friends, when it came to friends, they were all okay in pro name change and adjusting to the name. But when it came to me coming into their space, even with their parents too, because their parents have to go through it as well, the pronouns was an issue. And again, I'm a person that I give you a few chances and then I disappear. I don't want to waste my time. I don't like to be in discomfort. That's not my space for me. Less is discomfort and growth. But I mean, that might be their growth, and maybe they need a little bit more time with that, and that's fine. But I'm not going to sit in a space like that for too long. I have to leave. I'm going to subtract myself from that altogether. So that coming out, so to speak, I don't feel like it's necessary. I just feel like we should just allow people to be, and it shouldn't just be this whole coming out thing. It shouldn't be I'm coming out the closet. We need to start in a space of your child doesn't have a sexual orientation, or your child doesn't have, like, we do this thing when we see a little kid, especially in the black community, he's so cute, look, a little man, he's gonna get all the girls. How do you know that? We do that automatically to children. Oh my gosh, she's so beautiful, I can't wait till she gets married and her husband in the white dress. How do you know this? You know, we project those things on children so quickly that we don't give this chance for this space of growth. That's what you're doing. You don't give space for growth. So I feel like we need to kind of reconsider that and take a step back and say, okay, my kid could love whoever. My kid could grow up into whomever they feel the most centered with, because it's your center, it's your core. So whoever you feel most centered with, that's where we need to start. If you don't fall into the binary, I do feel like it's a lot more difficult for parents to kind of adjust to that, because then it becomes this thing of not understanding. Well, why don't you, again, they wanted to put you in this place of this box or this box. Why don't you choose? So even like when I said in the beginning, my mom, when I told her, say, hey, I think I'm bisexual, she said, no, you have to choose. Again, that thing of it's this or it's this. They don't understand the gray area, and the gray area kind of gets dismissed. And when the gray areas get dismissed, people feel left out, and they feel like they don't have a space. And it's a domino effect. So I feel like when you fall into the binary, it is a lot easier for some parents, because it kind of gives them the space of like, oh, my mom could say, oh, I have 2 sons. The more she, I guess, gets comfortable saying so. Whereas my dad, you know, he'll just say, because he was already calling me that from before I even told him a lot of things. He would just throw that in there because of what he thought my comfort was and the conversations we would have. So I think that when you fall into the binary, it is easier. But if you don't, I don't know. Because even when I think about me telling my mom or my dad that I'm talking to or interested in somebody of trans experience, I think that they want to understand that. I think I will have to have a conversation and break it down to them. And although that might be sad, or like, what do you need to break down? It's more of a, they just know one thing, and I am the catalyst of change for them. I am that breaking down, and I don't mind doing that, because I feel like the more I do that, the easier it is for somebody else. So I know some people kind of like, oh, I don't want to explain all the time. This is work and pay me or whatever the case may be. This is my. For me, it really is about taking the time out. Like I said, when I saw my cousins who saw me, who haven't seen me for years, to say, maybe I need to stop being as judgmental. Maybe I need to take the time out and see how this person's heart is. Or because you could get to know a person with trans experience and say, I really don't like who you are as a person. It has nothing to do with your transness. You feel me? It has nothing to do with that. It could just be the fact that you're not a nice person, or you're not a good person, or I just don't vibe with you. So we need to get people to get to know people first. Don't worry about everything on the outside or what's going on in somebody's pants. All that stuff is irrelevant. I feel like masculinity and femininity is energy, and that's something that I've grown to understand as well too. Because when I would think about my mom is a very strong woman, and when I would think about her attributes, I was like, huh, her attributes fall in line with the same thing I would look at for men. Or when I looked up attributes for men, I would say, okay, well, they fall in line. So they kind of like, they blend, and then it boiled down to everybody could choose which attributes fall in suit for them. My mom was just talking the other day about her sister, and her sister my aunt never liked dresses and never liked these type of things. And she was like, her sister always tell her, I don't want to be like you. I don't want to do the things that you do. I don't want the makeup. I don't want the shoes. But she still identifies as a woman, you know. And people feeling like they have to fall in line to these binary ways of shoes, makeup, shaving your legs, or whatever that may be. And for me, my masculinity, I feel in line with saying that it is interchangeable. Some days I feel like I used to fall. I feel like physically I fall into the binary, but I feel like as far as my actions, they can be non-binary. When it comes to my engagement with cis men, I feel as if I don't always fall in line because my views are completely different. It's not as boxed in, and I'll have these conversations and I'll try to question why they feel the way they feel about certain things. Men are supposed to do this and women are supposed to do that. And it's just like, well, why? Because I even saw somebody posted something. It was like about gold digging and women and men. And men, when they try to pursue women, they'll talk about all the things they have to offer a woman. I could do this. We could go here. We could do this. We could do that. But if a woman asks a man, "Oh, what can you do for me?" she's immediately considered a gold digger. And it's this interesting play on when a man is in charge and how if I take charge and if I'm doing this thing, then it's okay. But if you ask these questions, you're supposed to just play the submissive role and just allow me to do, instead of her taking charge and saying, well, can you provide this? Can you do this? You're being too bossy. You're being too pushy. You're being too assertive. So it's kind of like, it's this play on words, it's play on actions, play on roles. And again, sometimes men feel threatened by women who know what they want, and getting out of that space. There's nothing to feel threatened about. You know, it's good for people to know what they want. We should encourage that, because that means you know who you are. And it goes back down to that. 2015, I was coming out of a relationship, and I went into this space of I thought I was invincible. I don't use that word a lot, and I don't really tell it. I felt like I was the man. I felt like certain things won't happen to me. You know, I'm gonna live this life, and certain things won't happen to me. And that breakup was like a space where I had to relearn myself. And in the process of relearning myself, I already changed my first name. And I was talking to my family members, and they always made fun of my legs. I didn't understand why I had skinny legs. I don't have my mom's size legs, and they always say you don't have to Lovemore legs. And I said, that's what y'all was saying all these years? I didn't know what they were saying. They were saying it so quickly, or maybe because I was just paying attention to the fact that they were making fun of me, that I didn't pay attention to what they were saying really. Just knew they would tell me pick up my pants leg and just, your legs are skinny. Then I was like, oh, it's Lovemore you're saying. Lovemore. I said, where's that from? And they're like, that's Grandma Daisy's last name. I was like, oh, perfect. I was like, I'm going through this process and I'm learning myself. I'm loving myself more. I'm changing my last name. So I changed my last name from Samuels to Lovemore. And it's been Lovemore ever since. And I love it because, like I said, it's part of my journey and getting to know me and learning myself completely and putting myself first, ultimately. Putting myself first. And it works. It co-signs into my poetry too, because I write a lot of love poems. And I write a variation of things, but predominantly love poems. So I just felt like that was also like a good little token, like Lovemore, love poems, perfect. Trans lives don't matter, especially the women. And it's painful to see because they're, not to say that the men, I feel like the men kind of go under the radar. The women, they're dehumanized. And I just feel like this concept that we're not people, and you can't just walk down the street and feel like you're safe and you're okay. And The women that I talk to who I notice just won't even take the train because they're worried about their safety. Those are the things that I feel like are an issue that need to be addressed. I don't know how we're trying to figure out different ways to make, I guess, gaps and strides to have people understand that we're human. We deserve to live. We're just trying to navigate the same way you are. We need jobs and healthcare and housing, just like everybody else. Like when people say things like, the LGBT community getting everything. What's everything? Is everything jobs, healthcare, homes, a roof over their head? Like what exactly are we talking about when we say that these laws are being passed? The laws are being passed to ensure that we are safe. Then I feel like that's ultimately what I want for myself and for my community, for people to be okay. I think about my younger self a lot, and I think about feeling like I didn't have anybody. I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel like I could talk to anybody. So I want to make sure that the like Sir says, the babies. I want to make sure the babies are okay. I want to make sure that they can grow and be who they are freely. Grow into the flower that you're meant to be. That's what I want. My favorite part about being me is everything. I don't know. There's so many things. I love everything about me now, and it's the fact that I feel that way coming from a space where I was so down and depressed. It's just like I want to let people know, even when they're going through something, that you can get to the other side. There really is another side, and just push through. And I know I know that's like cliche, like, oh, it's easy for you. It's easier said than done, and I get it because I used to feel like that. But if you change your mind, you literally change your life. You need to think positively about yourself. You have to build yourself up. You're with yourself all the time. There's no reason why you should be breaking yourself down. There's no reason you should be breaking yourself down when you already have so many other people trying to do that. If you have people trying to do that, propel that. Give them love. And you'll be surprised how people respond because they're expecting something negative in return. So if you build yourself up there's nothing that anybody could do to deter you from being your best self. And I just love everything about myself. I can't pick one thing. And I don't want to have to ever pick one thing. It's everything.